About a week ago, I saw a video that inspired me. It was from a creator named Bear. Here's his channel up here. He was talking about the flaws that he's noticed in the time that he's had and used the Canon EOS RP. Now, I don't have an RP myself, but I have the cousin to the RP, the 6D Mark II. It's a DSLR, not a mirrorless, but it does have the same sensor as the RP, and there's a lot of similarities, as I'm hoping to talk about today. In Bear's video, he was talking about the flaws of the EOS RP, and it got me to thinking, what do I find as a drawback or a flaw in the 6D Mark II? And I made a little list, and oh my gosh, there's way more than I originally thought there was. Because I love this camera, I love the 6D, but there's so many little tiny things that I think if you're looking at maybe purchasing it, you probably want to know before you buy it. Now let me talk about my experiences with the 6D Mark II, but clarify to you how I use my camera. Over the past couple years, I've shot over 50 weddings and hundreds of commercials. So coming at this from the standpoint of a videographer, I've got to approach the elephant in the room. This is not a video camera. The thing that everyone was talking about was the fact that it doesn't shoot 4K video. Now, Bear mentioned in his video about the RP having 4K and almost immediately said, yeah, but I never really use it because it doesn't have autofocus and it's got a massive crop. Most of the people who do have a 4K camera are still shooting in 1080p and just upscaling the footage to 4K before they post it to YouTube. That way they don't have to deal with the massive file sizes, both in the memory cards and on their hard drives before they upload a video to YouTube. Now, the next flaw that I find with the 6D Mark II is the fact that it doesn't have any sort of flat picture profile. You end up using neutral or downloading CineStyle from the web just to get a flatter picture profile that'll give you more variance, more push and pull room in post. Now, this is the same problem that the EOS RP has. One of the ones that Bear mentioned was the lack of a flat picture profile. As a videographer, it does make a big difference when it comes to color grading and trying to get the most out of the sensor. Now, last night I did reach out to Bear to ask a specific question, a follow-up to his video. I asked him about the buffer on the photo side of things. Because on the 6D Mark II, you can shoot 6.5 frames per second, and I can say from experience that after 3 or 4 seconds, you are going to hit that buffer. And what he said was, he's only getting between 2 and 4 frames a second. That means that the buffer does take a little longer to fill up, but he's hit it before 2. So it's a problem with both of them. You have only one card slot, and those card slots are pretty slow on both. It's not really something that you deal with too much in the video side because the IPB codec that both of these cameras shoot is going to be a small enough file size that no matter what card you get, it's going to be fast enough to write to the card. Just keep in mind though, if you're looking at purchasing either one of these as a photo camera, they're not going to be great for sports. They're not going to be great for kids running around and trying to get fast shots. If you do try to shoot something like that, you're really gonna have to be a good photographer and keep in mind that you gotta slow yourself down or else you're going to hit the limitations of the camera. Now, you can't talk about both of these cameras without bringing up the fact that one is a DSLR and the other one's mirrorless. The mirrorless cameras actually give you a couple different benefits. One of the biggest ones is seeing your exposure when you're shooting photos and videos inside the viewfinder. Even on the brightest sunny days, it allows you to see exactly what you're going to shoot before you click the button. With the optical viewfinder of a DSLR, you kind of take a picture, check it. See if your exposure turned out okay. Take another picture, check it. Chimping is what they call that. But not having that electronic viewfinder, it sometimes means that I'm gonna shoot photos in live view to get the dual pixel autofocus versus the regular focus for the 6D Mark II in photo mode, where all the focus points are clumped so tight in the center that it's hard to pick the spot that you want to actually focus on. You kind of have to focus and recompose or switch into live view to get the focus spots farther out towards the edges of the frame. Both of them do a great job shooting photos in live view, but when it comes to shooting in the viewfinder, that electronic viewfinder is going to be a huge benefit and what I consider to be a flaw of the 6D Mark II. Now, one of the other things that the 6D Mark II and the EOS RP share is the fact that they both shoot 1080p full frame with autofocus, dual pixel autofocus, which in my experience will nail almost any shot of a person standing in front of the lens. Now, in the case of the EOS RP, it's just like Bear mentioned, it's gonna have contrast detect instead of dual pixel autofocus in 4K, which from personal experience, contrast detect does not cut it. The 6D Mark II on the other hand doesn't even have 4K. Both of them are going to shoot the 1080p with the dual pixel autofocus though, so they're very similar on that point, and it's what most people end up using if you're buying one of these two cameras. One of the other big differences between the 6D Mark II and the EOS RP is the lens mount. The EOS RP is going to take an RF mount, which can take EF or RF lenses on it. Where the 6D Mark II, you're stuck with the older EF mount, and this is something that you really have to be conscious of, is the fact that they don't have IBIS, or in-body stabilization. So I tend to choose lenses like the 24-105 that has stabilization and an ultrasonic motor for quiet autofocus that's going to get rid of a lot of those micro jitters you get when you put it on something like a shoulder rig or you're trying to handhold to get a really quick shot. This is going to smooth a lot of that out and still keep things in focus at a pretty good focal length, 24-105. But I will say that on the RF mount, you can get that stabilized 15-35 that kind of makes this look like a toy. I'm shooting this part handheld just to kind of show you one of the benefits that the 6D Mark II has over the EOS RP, and that is the body weight. So without using a stabilized lens, what you're going to run into on the RP is that it's so lightweight that you're going to get a lot of little shakes, a lot of micro jitters. But the heaviness of the 6D Mark II is actually going to be a benefit when shooting video and photos to get a little bit less of that bounciness, a little bit less micro jitter. I can actually handhold this and it's pretty stable just because of the weight of the camera. Now, that is also a drawback because there's been a lot of times when I'm holding this camera all day, and I just have to say that the extra weight of using a DSLR versus mirrorless, oh my gosh, my arms would kill me by the end if I had to actually carry this without being able to set it down or slide it back into the bag for a little bit on those 12-hour shoot days. So talking to Bear on Twitter, I had him almost convinced that the 6D Mark II would have been a better choice for him than the EOS RP, but I want to tell you, no, that's not true. Yes, there are some benefits, like having the 6.5 frames per second and having a larger battery life. But if I was to purchase one today, I'd be looking at the RP or seeing if I could save that much more money to get the EOS R instead of the 6D Mark II. Now, my suggestion is watch Bear's video on the EOS RP and definitely see if any of those flaws that he brings up are major deal breakers for you, because I'm going to suggest that the 6D Mark II is not the camera I would choose between this and the RP. I would definitely move into the RF mount system with the electronic viewfinder. Move forward into the future and just get yourself a couple extra batteries. I think it's going to be a better choice long term. So if you like this video, feel free to subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you know when my next videos get posted. If you have any questions about the 6D Mark II or the EOS RP, you can definitely leave them in the comments down below, or you can reach out to me or Bear on Twitter and have a conversation with us there. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll hope to see you next time.